Not that gone wild. Okay, guys, this has been an incredibly eventful first week in the NFL with a few surprises for sure.
Yeah, it's been absolutely crazy. Our record is not looking too good.
Still looking better than the Panthers and Giants, that's for sure.
Yeah, they looked horrible.
So first off, let's shout out our top teams in the ESPN Pigskin Pick'em Leagues. And you can still join the Pick-Em League via the link in the pinned comment of the video.
Also, we need to review the bets for this week. We hit 3 of 4 this week. Jalen Hurts passed for more than 250 yards. Tyreek Hill scored a touchdown. The Vikings and Giants game was under 41 points, but unfortunately neither of the defenses showed up for the Jets-Niners game, and they did not meet the under of 43.5 points.
If you bet like we did, you would have made some money. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss our picks each week.
With all that out of the way, let's get into our game reactions.
Starting off with the Ravens versus the Chiefs. This was a really great game to kick off the NFL season. Honestly, Lamar Jackson played really scared, and I was disappointed in his performance. He missed a wide open receiver in the end zone, and then when he did find the receiver was out by just a toe. Xavier Worthy, though, is going to be an absolute monster for the Chiefs. I can't believe the Bills let the Chiefs get him.
Yeah, that game was exciting, but not nearly as exciting as Eagles versus Packers. This game had so much potential, but it was completely wasted by the awful field. There was definitely some sloppy football being played, and the Eagles need to play their starters in the preseason, that's for sure.
This is the absolute craziness that is the AFC North. The Steelers are the only team in their division that have not scored a touchdown, but they are also the only team in the division that has won a game. The Steelers are very hard to predict because they just find ways to win games. And their defense is very good, especially TJ Watt. The Falcons, though, leave much to be desired, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they play in Week 2.
Moving on to the Cardinals-Bills game, this was just an absolute nightmare for anyone that had Marvin Harrison Jr. in fantasy. Freaking Kyler Murray never even threw to him. Well, excuse me, he did throw to him, I think, once. But Marvin Harrison Jr. was open multiple times and just did not get the ball. And as we already know, Josh Allen is an absolute monster of a quarterback. And I would be curious to see what he does with the very limited weapons that he has, aside from James Cook and Dalton Kincaid.
Next up, we have my Chicago Bears, and honestly, all of my fears of Caleb Williams came true. He had a QBR rating of 22.2, which is horrible, along with a 48.3% completion rating, and passed for a total of 93 yards. Thank God for our defense and special teams and Will Levis playing badly, because the defense and special teams won us this game.
I told you were glazing Caleb Williams. He hadn't played one single down, and everyone thought he was the next Patrick Mahomes.
Continuing now, we have what I thought was going to be the best game of the week, the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts. I'm looking forward to seeing more AFC South matchups, and that is not a sentence that I thought I would be saying 2 years ago. Anthony Richardson looked really good, but still needs some work. And the real standout from this game was Joe Mixon, coming in at an astounding 159 yards and a touchdown, as well as 19 yards receiving for a total of 178 yards.
I really thought Tyreek Hill getting arrested was going to make him suffocate in the game, no offense to George Floyd. But apparently, it only made him stronger. He came in with 130 yards and 1 touchdown, averaging almost 20 yards per carry. The Dolphins looked weak, but ultimately the Jaguars choked it away, which unfortunately is pretty standard for the Jaguars.
Next, we have the absolute train wreck that was the Bengals versus the Patriots. There are 3 things that are certain in life: death, taxes, and the Bengals starting 0-2. The Bengals just did not seem prepared for this game at all, and the Patriots' defense is still very good. The Patriots played simple, effective, mistake-free football, and it seemed like the Bengals overlooked this team entirely.
Moving on, we have the Carolina Panthers, who I would like to announce now have been eliminated from playoff contention. This game was more of a reflection on the Panthers than it was on the Saints. Bryce Young will probably be bagging groceries in the next year or two. And the head coach, I think, is fine, but the roster absolutely sucks. I think it's going to be a very long season for Carolina Panther fans. And Saints fans are probably going to end up being more delusional over this win here in Week 1 than Cowboy fans will be.
The New Jersey Giants. Daniel Jones is awful. You paid Daniel Jones $160 million, and let your best player and face of the franchise walk away to your division rival. Not much else has to be said. We can't really talk about the Minnesota Vikings because they played the Giants. Play some good competition, and then we'll start talking about you.
Next up is the absolutely crazy game that was the Denver Broncos at the Seattle Seahawks. Don't get me wrong, playing in Seattle is incredibly hard with how loud their stadium is. I still cannot believe the Broncos got 2 safeties in this game. Bo Nix performed well, all things considered. 138 yards, 2 interceptions, 2 sacks, and 1 rushing touchdown. He does not have anywhere near the supporting cast that the Bears have. So there is some hope for Broncos fans, but it's going to take time. Seattle, on the other hand, was somewhat messy, but they can hang their hat on Kenneth Walker being an absolute monster, rushing for 103 yards and a touchdown. He would have had a second touchdown, but it was called back on a penalty.
Now we have the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers. I was expecting more out of this Raiders team, but unfortunately they let me down. Jim Harbaugh's Chargers played mistake-free football, and it won them the game. This was essentially a home game for the Raiders. They should have done much better, but I do believe that they will get better as the season progresses.
Next up, we have the most promising-looking rookie quarterback, at least in Week 1, Jayden Daniels. Shockingly, Jayden is leading the team in rushing yards, oddly enough. Jayden had a 184 passing yards and 88 rushing yards in the loss against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He also had 2 rushing TDs as well. So as far as the Redskins are concerned, Jayden Daniels looks very promising, the rest of the team not so much. And Baker Mayfield is making a lot of Browns fans very angry because he played phenomenally, granted it was against the Redskins. So that's not saying that much, but my goodness. 4 touchdowns, 289 passing yards, absolutely incredible. As well as Mike Evans coming in with 2 touchdowns of his own. Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield are on track to have another good season together.
I hate seeing Dallas do well, but unfortunately they were playing against Deshaun. Don't touch me there, Watson. Deshaun Watson played horribly. 169 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a QB rating of 9.4. Not 94. 9.4. So it was really easy for the Cowboys to continually grind down the Browns' defense because the Browns' defense was playing the vast majority of the time.
Next up, we have arguably the most exciting game of the week, the Rams at the Lions. It's absolutely crazy to me that we now have expectations for the Detroit Lions to be good. Unfortunately, Matthew Stafford got injured, as well as Puka Nacua, who re-aggravated his right knee and will be week to week as far as his return timeline. The Rams played well, but unfortunately Matthew Stafford threw a critical end zone interception that really turned the tide. Ultimately, the game going into overtime, once the Lions got the ball, was not going to be much of a competition. The Lions showed a ton of grit and hunger, and David Montgomery just barreled through the Rams' defensive line to win them the game.
What a disappointment of a game. The Jets were so hyped up to do so well, but absolutely shat the bed. Rodgers seemed to play well, but nobody on his team could catch a freaking ball. And where was the Jets defense? It must have been back in New York. Excuse me, I mean New Jersey. You couldn't even beat the 49ers without Christian McCaffrey. Thankfully, the Jets have a whole season ahead of them to get it right. And the thing Jets fans have to be most thankful of is Aaron Rodgers survived 1 game.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed our reactions to Week 1 of the NFL. Look for our picks for Week 2 of the NFL later this week.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything.